Hey, what's up everybody, Bdf 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so got the Laker game coming up on in about an hour, and decided not to do my hundreds workout even though I've been telling myself I need to do it. I decided to shower first, took care of all the payments after the shower. It was one of them situations where I went down to the front desk, there was no one there at the moment, so I was like, alright, just give me an opportunity to get clean, get fresh, because I was sweating from that hot walk and wasn't in the greatest of spirits. So my thing was like, you can get up here, meditate, shower, and then go back down there, take care of it, and I feel a lot better, you know. Sometimes you just need that. But yeah, man, I just wanted to turn on the camera, kind of kill some time. I got my food cooking here, and you know, just want to encourage people to just continue on your consistency of everything that you're doing. We talk so much about consistency, and we all have our own walks of consistency and what matters so much to us. Everybody has their own thing. Some people are struggling with complacency, and I want you to know that there's a cure for that, and it's in your intentions to be unhappy with the results of that complacency. That's what ended up being a determining factor of me changing my way of doing things and developing consistency. I used to love feeling as if I could just do nothing with video games and all different types of stuff like that, but the result of that was an unhealthy body. And any time I would face any type of deviation from my comfort zone to do task, it was like a real chore as opposed to it being easy. For example, while my mother and I were still living together, doing laundry was such a task for me. Fixing the bed was such a task for me. Doing dishes, everything was such a task because I wasn't in the consistent space of doing it very often. Now, earlier on as a little kid, yeah, but as I grew older and started to become moody, and as a teenager, I would allow for complete and utter nothingness as it pertains to my consistency. And as I got older, that stopped being cute, so to speak. My mother would get frustrated with that, so she would then say, look, if you're not going to do it, it won't get done, to teach me how to take care of myself. And the early stages of being undisciplined in that way, trying to work that discipline in, was hectic for my brain. It was a strain because I wasn't used to being productive. I wasn't used to doing good in regards to just taking care of things. But as I started to continue to return to those actions, and then, you know, my mom moved out, I started taking care of myself. You know, I fast forward to where I am today, and laundry's barely a task. I don't even allow any dishes to stay in the sink. But there are still certain things that I don't do consistently, that if I'm forced to do them, it is a task. But I understand just the same that the same way I overcame that will be the way I approach this. It's going to be difficult to start the process of being consistent. You may have some setbacks in regards to whatever it is you're trying to start, but if you keep at it and keep returning to it, the more you return to it, the easier it gets. So this isn't a new concept we talk about on this channel, but it is one that I thought was relevant because what I'm dealing with right now is not having the time to be as consistent with certain things that I demand that I do, or not finding it within my schedule in the short term, and being concerned about reverting back to ways that make it more difficult to do those things that I've worked into my equation. So, for example, the hundreds workout that I like to do, where I squat for like an hour, I haven't been able to do that as consistently based on how the schedule has allowed for me not to have the time to do it, or have to share time with doing that and watching the game, for which is a task in and of itself for my brain, which I'd imagine if I got used to doing that, it wouldn't be much. But again, this is about conditioning and how one is married to conditioning. And so as a result of how I operate, thinking I can only do it when I want to do it, it makes it so that it's difficult for me to return to it as consistently as I want to do it, because I don't have the time to do it, more or less. You know, even though I could literally, just like I'm conditioning myself to know that I can start new things, I can also play, watch the Laker game and do the hundreds workout, as I've done it before, but it's not in my consistent space of doing it. So when you're locked into what it is that you want to do and how you like to do things, you can find yourself locked into the idea that you can't do it if not for certain things being lined up properly. So that's what I've been struggling with my mental health as of late. And just the same as a conditioning training journey, that needs to be embarked upon for myself in this area. And so it makes it relevant for me to bring up this to you guys, whoever need to embark on their own consistency journey, starting process, that you can do it. And I can do it. And we can put ourselves in a position to overcome whatever complacency, strangleholds, or conditioning strangleholds that ultimately allow for us to feel like we cannot do what we can do. Breaking out of my routine, doing things outside of my routine, you know, the comfort zone of certain routines and being locked into those things. All of these different conditioning mindsets can be overcome with the process of stepping out of those mindsets and then allowing for the process to return to stepping out of those mindsets. The next time it comes around, step out of that mindset. And the very next time after that, return to it. That can be difficult for a lot of people, returning to something that they deem more difficult. But understanding that once you start the process of doing something difficult, it's you returning to it that's going to make it easier. And as you continue to find the strength to do so, it will become easier. So it's about conditioning, all about conditioning, all about consistency in the training of one's mind to step out of what makes you comfortable so that you can develop new, more productive comforts. And so for some people that's really easy, for other people it's very difficult. For some people it feels like you're climbing up Mount Kilimanjaro. But small increments, baby steps is what is ultimately going to get you there. You know, for me now, what we've been talking about in my therapy is incorporating new forms of stress, since I don't necessarily handle stress very well, and conditioning of my mind allows me to stay in spaces where I avoid certain things that need to be done for the sake of them being stressful, and ultimately welcoming greater stresses into my life because of it. It's a conditioning thing. It's also a trauma reaction thing, I guess, though we don't know necessarily what causes that, but we know how to overcome it. And it starts the same way that we just described, approaching it, knowing that it's hard, getting through it that time, and then coming back to it. No different than any other practice. Addressing your stress threshold is going to be approached the same way as any other practice. You let a little bit in, start small, work your way up, start with baby steps, learn how to run, learn how to fly. But it requires you to first be willing to go through that hard process a couple of times while it's absolutely foreign to you, so that you can get it into some type of conditioning for yourself. And so developing the mind and conditioning whatever way you want to. Some tasks are more grueling than others. Some people have stronger thresholds for facing those type of things. Some people have more time to dedicate to these type of things than others. But at the same time, it's all about doing your very best to incorporate what's new into your life. Understanding that it's going to be hard the first couple of times, but understanding that you're going to get conditioned to where if you keep repeating it, it will become a situation where you feel uncomfortable if you don't do what it is that now feels uncomfortable the first time. That's the secret. You can condition yourself for anything. And then furthermore, may be married to the very thing that you absolutely can't see yourself doing right now. Because you're going to start that process, you're going to return to it, and over time, it's going to become your conditioning. And so that's what we allow people to understand through my journey in mental health. The very things that I thought that I could never bring myself to do when I lived in Lenox are the things that I now feel uncomfortable if I'm not able to do over here. Getting out and walking around, you know, not staying cooped up in the room. That was all I wanted to do in Lenox. I want to leave the house. You know, I thought I needed weed. I wasn't comfortable unless I was smoking all day long, twice a day, 3 times a day. I don't have any weed in my life. Don't want it. You know, condition myself to live without it, and it stopped being as much of a task when I started putting it in my heart, in my mind, that I'm going to go down the path of conditioning myself to be without it, just like I conditioned myself for it. And so that's what I'm here to share with you guys. And the mindset starts with your willingness to start a process, and then furthermore your willingness to return to that process. And though the first couple of times it's grueling, you'll get through it. You know, I think of the concept of Hell Week in military training. I don't know if they still call it that, but when I was a kid, that was what it was told to me. And you go to military training, the first week, they put you through Hell Week. That's you pushing your body physically, getting up early, them training you to be what ultimately you're going to condition yourself for. That first week is called Hell Week because they're introducing so many new things that are so strenuous and so difficult that it's going to feel like you're going through hell. But after a week of it, guess what you end up having? It'd be more like conditioning of the mind. Now, it may take longer than a week for a lot of people to get some of that stuff into their equation. But if you fast forward to where they end up being by the time they graduate, they have it worked into their equation. And that's what training is all about. So anything that you want to work into your life, it's going to be that Hell Week process. Anything you're trying to incorporate into your conditioning, it's going to be that Hell Week process. Anything you're trying to wean off of, whether it be an addiction or something that you just find yourself attached to, it's going to be a Hell Week process. That's going to be the hardest part, is continuing to return to it. You know, when I first started losing weight and started going on my fitness journey in my early 20s, it took a lot longer than a week of strenuous returning to the journey that makes before becoming conditioned for it. You know, I was telling myself that I wanted to lose weight, but I kept on eating poorly, you know, as we've talked about several times on this channel. But the relentlessness that I found within myself to continue to go out there and jog when I determined in my head that I wasn't going to be fat anymore, so to speak, made it so that even when I was hungover, I'd go out and drinking the night before, get up 3 hours later. At times when I come home at like 6 a.m. I get up 3 hours later with a massive hangover and force myself to run just because I was so determined to run every day. It was not only hard, I wasn't even okay when I was doing it, but it was because I refused to take a day off because I wanted the results of what that running was going to be so bad that I refused to give myself any passes for my routine. It was the only thing I was focused on. It was the only thing I would accept from myself. And so that's what I'm telling you. And then that became a situation where I had to do other things in order to, you know, to look the way I wanted to, for which I was able to incorporate eventually the same way. Consistency, relentlessness, and gradual building in the process of what it is I was trying to do. And we always talk about starting small with exercise. And maybe you want to do crunches, and maybe you only can start with 10, but you're going to work your way up. You add every time it gets comfortable, you add 1, add 2 every time it gets more comfortable, and just keep returning to it. After a certain time, it stops being as difficult to return to, and after a long time, it starts being something you can't even do without doing it. You can't even sleep without having done it before you go to bed. That's the condition that we want to believe in while trying to work that into our equation. We want to get to that point to where the very thing that we can't seem to find ourselves willing to do will be the same thing that we can't go to sleep without getting done. Believe that you're going to get there, know that that's how it works, and to continue to return to it with the intention of making it that comfortable for you to do it. And so that's what I want to encourage people to just believe in that process of getting there. Any person that needs to start something new that's going to be hard to do, get through your Hell Week process. It may not be a week, it may take a month, it may take 2 months, it may take 4 months for you to get through that hell process. But once you get through that hell process and you start building that resistance and that conditioning, then you're going to find out you don't feel comfortable unless you do it. Anybody that's training for a marathon, anybody that's trying to be a bodybuilder, maybe it has nothing to do with something physical. Maybe you're trying to go on a journey of reading. Maybe trying to learn a new language. You know, whatever the case may be, it's just going to require you to start that process, do what you can do, return to it. The key is not doing so much in one setting. It's the commitment to return to it that ultimately is going to give you that conditioning. I may only be able to do 1 push-up today. It's not that I do 100 push-ups today. It's that I come back tomorrow and do 1 as well. If I'm not coming back tomorrow, then I've missed the point. So what we got to be committed to is the return. Some days you go to the gym and you don't have it. You'll go to the gym other days and be able to push your way through more than ever before. I told y'all a story one time when I had worked into my equation jogging, and I jogged in the daytime, and then sometimes I would go to the gym and jog for 2 days in the jogging process. One day I went to Bally's in Hollywood. I had just bought my iPod Shuffle. I think my uncle or somebody had purchased it for me, and I had just loaded it up with music. The first time I put that Shuffle in my ear with all my favorite music, I ran for a full hour non-stop. And I noticed that I did that because there was a clock on the wall next to the track. I kept running. Usually I could run, my conditioning level would have me run maybe 20 minutes a day. If I had to do 2 a days, you'd add another 10 minutes or something. I had never ran like that before. My body would never have let me run like that before. But I had been jogging at that point for maybe like 8 months. And for whatever reason, that day, my body had it. Way more than I've ever had it since. And I was able to jog. And when I stopped jogging, I still felt like I could have kept jogging. I don't know how long my body would allow me to jog that day. But the point being was, it's because of the fact that I was able to continue to return to it relentlessly, consistently, obsessively even, that allowed for that to have even been possible. And I could never go out there right now and think to do that. I could jog for about 5 minutes and then huff and puff, since my body's not conditioned for that, but I know how I would get there if I were to try again. And it's going to be the same way that I got there the first time. And any other time in my life when I decided to jog, it required me to continue to return to it. Some days I might be able to jog my normal route. There may be a day where I don't have it at all. I might go out there and be able to jog half my normal route and then be exhausted, sweating profusely. A lot of times that has to do with how well you're recovering, how well you're eating, etc. But the point is, it's about coming back the next day. It's not about being so excited that you had so much one day and then all of a sudden being cool with that and comfortable with that. It's about the practice and the consistency of returning to what you're doing. That's going to really build up that for which you're aiming for. And being married to results, especially when it comes to physical fitness, can be very, very misleading, because a lot of times we'll go through the process and the rigors of trying to get where we want to go, and you may not see the results of what you're looking for at a certain point. But to realize that that's not the top of the mountain, nor is it that you haven't moved at all. Your next workout will determine whether or not you head in the direction you want to go, or if you're going to head back down the direction from which you're unhappy with. Because complacency and quitting will always give you the results that you're not pleased with. You may not be happy with what you're doing because you're not seeing it as soon as you'd like to see it. But best believe that for which makes you unhappy is coming from not you doing it, but you're not doing it. Because that's what I've been struggling with my gut. Doing crunches every day, and I'm not seeing the six-pack. I'm not, you know what I mean? It's not coming in. But I know that if I stop doing my crunches, I'm definitely not going to see my abs coming in. But if I continue to do my crunches, I may not see them either, but I know I'm more likely to see them if I keep this going, especially if I'm adding to what I'm doing consistently. See what I'm saying? So we don't want to psych ourselves out saying what's the use of putting in the work because we're not seeing the results. The only way you're going to see results is if you put in the work. Now, you may need to adjust other things around what you're doing so that you can see those results, but stopping your process for not being pleased with your results is most definitely going to lead you back down a path for which you will not be pleased with your results. And furthermore, conditioning that's going to make it even more difficult to return to what it is you need to do to get the results that you ultimately want. That whole what's the use will lead you down the path where you're unhappy for certain. And then there's adjustments that I struggle with right now with my push-ups. I've been doing half push-ups, as I tell y'all about. Worked my way up from 30, like 4 years ago, whenever I started, 30 half push-ups to 170, where I'm able 172, which is where I'm at right now. But then realizing that because I've been doing half push-ups, I am not actually doing proper push-ups to get the results that come from doing full push-ups, proper push-ups. So what I've now done is weaned off of my 172 in place of doing proper push-ups. And I can only do like 30. I've worked my way up from 20 to 30. That's not impressive, but the point is I have to build the same way. The problem is the conditioning of the 170, what I'm used to seeing my chest look like when I'm doing the 170 halves, has now started to deflate and is not as defined because I stopped doing those and incorporated the new ones, which is not as much exertion for the sake of proper form. So what I'm seeing is not as impressive as what it was when I was doing improper form. But I'm going to build from here. And so that's what I got to tell myself. It's not that I'm weaning off. It's just that I'm doing something different, and that for which is different is going to require me to build up to 170 to see the exertion that comes from doing half push at 170. But it will be much better when I get there, because I'm now doing proper push-ups that ultimately make it so that I'm able to incorporate fuller motions into the overall push-up itself. So I'm gonna get better results in the long run. But for right now, it feels like I'm doing less, it looks like I'm doing less, and because of it, I'm very frustrated with my adjustment to my routine. So for me, I'm trying to figure out how to get around that. I'll take off my shirt and I don't see what is most impressive. Or I get down there to try to do my 170s, and it's 10 times harder than it was just 2 weeks ago when I was doing them 6 and 7 times a day. But I'm only averaging like maybe 2 sets of 170 every day. But I've worked into the equation to build up from 20 regular push-ups to 30 in that same amount of time. So it's like, am I really doing good? But if the goal is to perfect your push-up, then you just have to keep doing what it is that you're working on and not be married to the results. And so that's what I'm struggling with right now. I know my chest doesn't look as strong as it did 2 weeks ago, but I also know I'm more likely to pull off real push-ups and incline push-ups, which is also something I've been incorporating, than I ever was able to back then. And so with the 170 being as comfortable as it was. So doing all three is most important for me. Not necessarily abandoning my 172, because I built that and I deserve to keep that, but to also make sure that I'm getting those real push-ups in so that when I go all the way down and go all the way up, I'm not straining at 20. You know what I'm saying? So how do I do that? By weaning off the 170, incorporating the deep 20s, and then moving up my deep 20s and not giving up on the deep 20s. So that's what it is. You gotta just live with the results as they come. Don't worry so much about what the results are, but more so about being consistent and returning to the work. And that process will ultimately give you all of the results that you're looking for. And quitting and becoming complacent and succumbing to that complacency will most definitely send you in the other direction that will undo all of your progress. Do not undo all of your progress. So that's what I want to say to people, man. This is what I'm going through these days. Little things, but big things just the same, because it's about conditioning the mind. And if you can condition your mind in these areas, you can input that same application in different, more difficult areas and improve other areas of your life. And that's what it's really all about. So that's why I encourage people to embark on their own journey. You see what I did with art? Same thing. I ain't no good artist. I'm a terrible artist. I really am. But I don't care if you're an awful artist like me. You do 9,000 art pieces and you're going to stumble across some good stuff. And that is what I've done. A couple of my pieces are really good. I ain't no good at art. That is not a gift of mine. I have gifts. I know what I'm good at. I know what I suck at. My intention was to start something that I absolutely suck at and beat it in the ground so many times to where I can see myself reach my ceiling in an area where I otherwise don't have any potential. That was the goal for me when it came to art. And so when you look at what I've done and you look at the pieces that I've made and you're like, how the hell you look at where I started and you look at some of the pieces that I made, how did that come from that person? It's because even if you're horrible at something, if you're relentless about becoming your best and literally never quit at any given point, you're going to get to some version of competent at the very least. Maybe even good. Maybe even stumble into being pretty damn good. You may never be great, and if somebody who has talent in that same area applies the same amount of time, they're going to be significantly better than you. But that's not the point you want to make when you try what it is I've tried with art. The point you want to make is to see yourself be started at an absolute terrible space to see what it looks like when you embark upon a journey of trying to make yourself good at something you're no good at. And that's what I've done. That's exactly what I've done in art. That is exactly what I've done in art. You know, just for the sake of telling myself, hey, you can improve on anything. Look at what you are absolutely the worst at. You can get to a point where you're good at it if you dedicate enough of yourself to it. You can do it. And that's what I've hoped to be able to be an example in regards to that art journey. So anytime you see any pieces of BDF, any BDF art, just know this was me doing something a million times that I absolutely felt no confidence nor any talent in. And I knew that, and I was comfortable with that, and I did it as if I loved it. I did it with the type of passion as if I were good at it, to get as good as I could get. And so that's really what it's about, man. Go on those journeys, condition your mind to do those things. You may find passion in stuff that you're not very good at. People may tell you to never return to it, but you should probably still return to it a million times more than anybody else who does have talent in it, especially if it's an artistic passion. You know what I mean? And so that's what I want to say to people. Some people cannot sing at all. I have a certain high school friend who could not sing, but she kept on doing it. This is where I got the concept from. She could not sing, but she would always have a passion for singing. She always would record herself singing and share it with others. And I used to listen to her music, and I would tell her to keep going. I never told her she was good because I didn't want to lie to her. I thought she was horrible at it. But that was never the point. She was in high school, probably 15 years old, embarking upon something that if she kept at it, she could get pretty decent at. And sure enough, she actually made a living as a singer. Traveled the world as a singer. That's who she grew up to be, a singer. She took something that she was not very good at, was relentless about it early enough in life, and made a life out of it, made a career out of it. And that's what I came to understand. It wasn't about her being any good at it. It was about her being relentless and improving upon whatever her floor and her ceiling could be. And as she returned to it a million times over, ignoring people who told her she couldn't do it, listening to people like me who told her, yeah, keep going, she found herself able to embark upon her own style, and was from there able to make a career out of it. And that's what you're going to discover you're able to do when you work on things you're no good at. You're going to find ways of creating your own lane within it. And you never know. Sometimes people like things that other people think is bad. Sometimes people herald people as great at doing things that other people would think are bad, or structured people who teach people how to do these things would think is bad. That's no excuse to ignore the journey of relentlessness as it pertains to what it is you want to get better at. Your relentlessness will determine your improvement, not your adherence to anyone's naysaying upon your intentions to getting better. And so that's what I want to say, man. Constructive criticism may help you. I wouldn't say shun everybody who has something negative to say about what it is you're doing, but those who tell you to quit, ignore those people. Ignore those people for sure. Because they don't know what it is you're aiming for, and they don't know where it will take you if you go down that path. Some people tell you to don't quit your day job. Maybe you shouldn't quit your day job, but you should definitely keep your passion in this area. You understand what I'm saying? Keep on working on your incremental improvements in that area, regardless of whether or not it should be something you're married to. as your main breadwinning process. Because it's not about you being as great as someone who's great at it. It's about you getting as great as you want to see yourself get in that area for your own reasons. Bdf 44. I thank you all for watching. Out.